Man, I've done everything society has told me to do. I worked hard in school. I got good grades. I went to college, got out and got a job. And man, I'm just miserable. The system is rigged and there's just no way to get ahead. And eggs are $7 a dozen. And man, I can never gonna buy a home. I'm never gonna have anything. Man, it just sucks. Have you seen these videos lately? Because I certainly have, and maybe it's just my algorithm and how it works, and maybe I should stop clicking on them. But you might have seen these kind of videos lately, and they're sort of the doom scrolly, never gonna get ahead, rage against the machine. I've done everything right, and the system has screwed me. And you know what? I don't disagree with these videos. In fact, I think they all make incredibly valid points. But what they serve to do is to disempower people and make them feel like it's just hopeless and there's no way they could win. And it's just going to be a death spiral down to the end of their days where they're going to die broken, miserable. And you know what? I think it's all a bunch of crap because what it does is takes away the responsibility from you and puts it on somebody else. And that kind of thinking isn't going to get you anywhere. And so today I'm going to go over why this thinking doesn't make any sense today, even though some of it is true. And then at the end, I'm going to give you just a few solutions or at least different ways of thinking that are hopefully going to progress your path towards greater prosperity, because I do think it's possible. And I'm not trying to come down on anybody who's feeling this way and who's feeling discouraged, because I've definitely been there. And like I said, I agree with this. But what I don't agree with is the narrative that someone else is responsible for this and that there's no way out because the system is rigged. So let's get into it. First of all, the system has always been rigged in some way. You can go back towards the founding of the United States, where I'm based, and it's all been rigged in some way to favor one group of people over another. It's always been that way. You can go throughout the entirety of our history, and there's always been like the man who wants you to do a certain thing and tries to get you to do this. And, it typically involves like getting into debt and then working to pay off that debt at a job you don't like or where the wages aren't competitive. And so you see an iteration of this throughout history of where I can't get ahead, man. The system is rigged. Big pharmaceutical companies want you to be sick so they can sell you drugs. Yes, that is true. You're not wrong. But there's nobody coming to save you. And you don't need a government regulation to tell you to like eat healthy and exercise. So if you're looking for the government to swoop in and like tackle big pharma or something. No, it's got to start with you. And I think a lot of these problems have to start with you, because if you're like, I listened to them and they told me to do this, and then I couldn't achieve what I wanted to achieve, you're giving all the power away to other people. And the only reason why I say this is because I've been there myself. So I totally get it, because I did the same thing. I did the same exact thing these people are talking about in the videos where they're like, I did what the system wanted me to do, and I'm not where I want to be, and I feel disenfranchised and unhappy. Great. I've been there too, because I also followed the same BS system and rules. And what you have to realize is that, yes, they're old, antiquated rules. Like this whole progression of like going to college, like getting good grades, going to college, then getting a job, getting everything you want because of that. Yeah, it worked in the 50s or even up until maybe the 80s, because they were just giving away these kind of manufacturing jobs where you didn't even really need a college education, but they needed you on an assembly line to like, you went down to the Ford factory and put on the bumper, and you did that all day long for 30 years, and you were able to buy a house, and you were able, but it wasn't easy. It was never easy for anybody in any time of history. So I don't really think it's harder now, because despite all like the boomer hate, hey, boomer, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, you know what? Boomers didn't have it easy either, because when like my folks bought a house, it was at a 16% interest rate. 16% interest rate. And you're like, yeah, the house only cost 35,000. Yeah, but they were only made like, you know, I don't know, it was like 1,000 a month or something. I'm not even sure. No, it wasn't even that. It was nothing. And they had to eat, you know, hot dogs and beans and Franks and beans, I mean, true story. And it wasn't easy. And it's just never been easy. And the game has changed. And so these days, if you do follow that script, I do think that's going to lead to a path of sort of not being able to get ahead. If you're thinking you're just going to, do well in school, get a job, which typically means working someplace you don't really like at some big employer or office or something where you don't have any skin in the game there and you get paid okay, but it is kind of never enough to get ahead. And you got kind of these golden handcuffs because you have benefits and safety. And then you realize you don't really have safety and it is sucking the life out of you. And so I understand why people want to get out of that. Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to realize that you are an independent agent who has control over your decisions and that those decisions are very powerful and can propel you forward. So I think the first thing is to stop this narrative of like, I did this and I listened to them and the man is keeping me down and blah, 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 or whoever else is out there. Whatever the boogeyman is out there, you need to put that aside because there is no one coming to save you or help you or get your life together but you. And once you realize that, that could be very powerful. And it does take a little bit of time to separate that from like blame. Like I'm at fault and I'm at blame. It's like, it's not about blame. It's about taking responsibility and realizing like where you are right now is a product of your decisions that you've made. And so once you start doing that, you become incredibly powerful. And so the first step is to take responsibility for your decisions because these days the game has changed. And I think that you need to become an owner. I really say this world, especially in the US, separating between just owners and people that consume and people that rent. So it's going to be an owner versus renter nation, and the owners are going to have most of the power and success, and the renters are going to be making videos on YouTube about how the system is rigged. So what you have to do is figure out how to become an owner of your skills, an owner of your time and effort, and an owner of assets. I'm a licensed real estate agent. I'm a real estate investor, an accredited investor. So I own assets. I own equities, stocks. I own Bitcoin. I own rental properties, and I'm trying to get more because you have to be an owner. And I think the first step is realizing that you have to kind of own your time and effort. And I see this happening through at least entrepreneurship or maybe being a contractor. I think in the future, at some point, we're going to have much more peer-to-peer hiring, kind of like what you see on the Fiverr platform or any place where they do independent contracting. I think that people's labor, if they're smart, they're going to own that labor and they're going to be able to help people either through their own business or maybe through a platform where they work from home or they work from a small office providing that. So if you're following the 90s blueprint of getting a job, I would rethink a job as solving a problem, creating value for people, and the more value you create for people, the more value that you earn. So this is tangible skills. So the days of you doing your medieval studies degree or your philosophy degree or whatever, nothing against those things, but they're completely worthless in the marketplace. Like you can read a few philosophy books, you can talk about philosophy. I like all these subjects, so I'm not trying to come down on certain subjects, but you certainly don't need to go to college and pay for that to get ahead. And I think that's the first step too in realizing like this isn't going to help you. You need to figure out what the return on investment is on your time and energy to learn these skills. And so they need to be tangible skills. And they don't have to be tech skills necessarily. I was listening to a podcast where they're like, we can't hire enough welders. We've heard this over and over again about the trades. When I worked at a high school, I saw the trade booth, the welders were there and the electricians, and it was basically empty. No kids were up there. And I just wanted to shout in the cafeteria, like, get in there. Like, what are you doing? So part of it's like learning these skills and then owning them rather than placing them on someone else. Cause the whole job model, it's not as secure as you think. Companies go out of business. They have layoffs. This whole thing about like, I'm safe and secure in my job. Yeah, I would tend to disagree with that. And then also that security comes at a price. So these people are complaining about like, I don't like to go to work. I don't like who I work with. I don't like the company culture. I don't like what I'm doing. Well, that's the price of security and safety. And so that really wears on you over time too. So I think things, like I said, have always been hard. You need to be an owner and you need to take responsibility for your effort and your work. And so that's going to be very important. I'm going to give you a couple ways that I see just some frameworks for you to kind of move on to a new way of thinking. And first of all, are going to be the geo-arbitrage. So you need to move. If you're in a place where you can't get ahead because expenses are so high, like you need to get out of there if you can. So there's plenty of people who, live in Los Angeles or New York or some really expensive place, and they're like, working at a diner and or doing whatever, and math doesn't work because you live in an expensive place and you need to go. We can all move. We all have the freedom to move and to go. And that's what you need to do. There's plenty of towns out there that are growing, that have a lot of great amenities, and the cost of living is like exponentially lower than it's going to be in these places that you're at. Like if you're in Seattle, cruddy company, and you can't buy a home and you can't pay the rent, and you got to leave. Like, what are you doing? Geo arbitrage is what they call it. You can just call it moving. Moving from a place of high expense to low expense is really going to help you. And people seem to be like stuck where they are a lot of times. And I get it. There might be other commitments, family commitments. I totally get that. But if you're able to, you have to move to a place where there's opportunity and a lower cost of living. And this is really going to help you out. If you're interested in doing that, I have connections across the United States and to a lot of these cities where people are moving. If you would like help finding a home in any of these places, Oklahoma City, Kansas City, Missouri, Lakeland, Florida, hit the link in the description below and let's just have a chat about how I might be able to help you do that. All right. So that's one of the first things I would do. The other thing I would do is to rethink the biggest expenses that we have, and those are going to be transportation and housing. And these are just by far the biggest one, like your latte saving. I mean, come on, like your Netflix subscription and all this stuff. I do see this happen a lot where recently I had a friend and she was looking to refinance because her loan payment, because of property taxes, her mortgage went up like $100 and she was, all in a flutter. And if you went on her social media, you could see that she literally was out of town every weekend, like flying with her partner to Texas and to Tennessee and just doing all these vacations. And you're like, man, you gotta that is a part of it, because if you're living paycheck to paycheck, that's not a thing. That's not a thing you just accept. Living paycheck to paycheck is an accounting problem. It means that you're taking in a certain amount and you're spending all of that. And, that's unacceptable. I mean, I've never lived paycheck to paycheck, even when I made $10 an hour. When I first moved up to Portland, $10 an hour, I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck because that's a math problem. And so I figured out how much I brought in and how much was coming out. And I wanted to have more after that equation. That's how it works. It's simple math. It's not this set in stone thing where it's like, we're all living paycheck to paycheck. No, you, to a large extent, choose to live paycheck to paycheck, and it's a hard reality to live up to. I'd love to hear all the hate in the comments about how this is a tone deaf YouTube video, but I don't think so. I think living paycheck to paycheck is a choice, and you need to get on those expenses. But having said that, these little expenses aren't going to really help you that much. What's really going to help you is living situation and your transportation. And so as far as living goes, you're not entitled to a one-bedroom apartment. Like the one-bedroom apartment syndrome is, to me, kind of crazy. I have renters right now in one of my properties, great people, pay on time, wonderful folks. This guy makes quite a bit of money, and like quite a bit, like, getting close to, 10 grand a month. And he's paying $2,400 a month in rent. Why? Like, he doesn't own a home. He's in a 3-bedroom house. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, you're not worth it. You're not worth that. If you have to spend, 50% on housing, then you need to figure that problem out and get creative about it. I mentioned it in some other videos before. You need to, like, I'm talking, saving up to buy an RV, parking it on somebody's land. Working an arrangement out where you're, helping out a senior. Maybe they have an ADU or some other room. Maybe you can help them out. Maybe you can make a meal here or there and you get reduced rent. You can do co-living, like a pad split, where you are renting one room out of a house, and that's going to significantly cut down your living expenses. Is it glamorous? Is it going to be kind of a pain? Yeah, it is. It's not ideal, but you need to get creative outside of the one bedroom apartment. As long as it's obviously, I don't want anybody to be unsafe or living in areas that are dangerous, but you need to figure that out and you need to get creative about it. The same thing with transportation, like these whole 72-month plans at 5% interest on your $50,000 car. Again, you're not worth a $50,000 car. I've never bought a new car. Never. I've purchased a used car once, and then now I just pay cash for cars. If you can do that, that's the best. I recently sold like a 2000 Camry. It had almost 200,000 miles on it. It's going to go another 100,000 miles. It was like $1,600 is what I sold it for, and I kind of regret it. You need to buy those cars in cash. You certainly can't buy a new car and have it on a payment. Payments are going to kill you because that's an expense that you have to come up with every month and you don't have any flexibility. So I've seen all kinds of alternative transportation. There's like e-bikes, e-motorcycles, a conventional bike. If you're not going to do the car route, a lot of people feel they need a car, but really they don't. You know, they work a couple miles from work, and they can certainly ride some alternate transport there. That's going to save them a ton of money because cars are a lot of money. The maintenance on them, the gas, the tags, it's just a crazy amount of expense that you have to pay. And I would get rid of that expense by either paying kind of upfront with a used car that I pay for in cash or using some kind of alternative transportation, because between housing and transportation, it's killing your budget. And last is going to be just rethinking education. So I recently had a family, they're Gen Xers. They had a kid. Their kid graduated from high school, and it was like, congratulations, blah, blah. We're proud of you and so glad to wish you well on your next step to going to UC San Diego to study philosophy. And I was like just falling out of my chair because what are you doing? Anybody who is doing that is just, I think, irresponsible. And honestly, I don't think it's good parenting. Like, where are the parents here? Like, I mean, unless you're just super uber wealthy and you plan on, there's a trust fund or something, what message are you sending? Like, UC San Diego is not a cheap university. And philosophy, like I said before, useless as far as employment for the most part. If you're a philosophy millionaire, let me know in the comments that you made your millions from philosophy. Let me know. I'd love to hear about it. I love philosophy. I love religious studies, any kind of studies. I love education, but I don't think you should pay for it. And I don't think it's useful. So I think rethinking that education, there's so much more value in certificate programs. A lot of these like mechanical HVAC programs out of junior colleges. I've seen like airplane mechanics. There's all kinds of opportunities that are kind of out of the box that, your typical high school counselor is not going to tell you about. Like, maybe they are now, but I still think they're trying to push college for everybody, and it just doesn't work, and it's going to put you in debt. And again, that's going to be another monthly expense. I know. I have it too. I have college debt that I'm hoping to have paid off. My degree was medical related, so it did pay off. If I'm going to pay whatever I want, whatever I'm paying for in that college education, I want to earn back dollar for dollar in my salary. So if I pay $60,000 for my college education, I want a salary yearly of at least $60,000. So that's kind of how the simple napkin math for education is, if I'm not going to earn that, then I'm not going to do it. And honestly, I want to earn more. So if I take the HVAC course for 10 grand or whatever, well, I know I can do much better than 10 grand being an HVAC technician. And then again, owning all my stuff, eventually starting an HVAC company is going to be the way to go. And it's going to be a huge return on my investment. Again, you're not screwed. You have the power to get yourself out of this jam. I know you can do it. It's not easy, and it's never been easy. I don't buy the narrative like it's the hardest it's ever been. Now is the hardest. Like in the Dust Bowl when people were kicked off their land and had to migrate, that wasn't nothing compared to today. It's like, no, we have it pretty easy today. And I think there's a lot of opportunity out there, but you have to change the narrative. If you found any value in this, please consider smashing the like button and considering subscribing for more content like this. I appreciate you. Good luck out there, and I'll see you soon.